Hey everyone, welcome back to City Skylines and the Aurelia city. In the last episode, we moved back to the underground depot and transport hub to start building this high to medium density suburb on the very edge of the city. As you can see, we have huge areas still open between the waterfront district and here, so let's not waste any more time and let's just jump right into filling it. We have a very important task today, and that's going to be the transition between the waterfront district and this area that we started last time. Yes, there already is that ridge with the trees and the pedestrian highway that's kind of dividing both places, but still, I would like to do some sort of a transition blocks, let's say, that will share some similarities in styles, in terms of styles, between the two places that we need to connect today. So first things first, we obviously need to prepare some infrastructure, and that's not exactly difficult because it's all kind of laid out already from the previous episodes. So for example, we need to finish this tram road in here and just build some parallel roads for vehicles and kind of prepare some more infrastructure for the blocks. But with this build, I kind of decided that I want to do a slightly different approach, and that's going to be basically a completion of this like smaller blocks and then just moving on and doing something else, right? Because I wasn't exactly sure how I'm going to do all these blocks. To be perfectly honest, I was really just looking forward to get this over with, because this is going to be one of those cases in the city where I really just needed to fill some larger areas with something, and just complete the overall feel, the high density feel of this general district, let's say. Okay, so this is pretty much something that we have seen before in Aurelia. This is just the clipping of buildings together, various buildings. Yes, some buildings we have seen many times before, but that's just the way it is. And just completing these blocks and having some kind of fill in these places. But we're obviously going to do something more interesting in some different blocks as we move forward. So in this particular area, I really wanted to have like a very messy looking blocks that are just combining all kinds of different buildings together, because we have this very orderly and kind of open blocks, well, not really blocks, but places near the underground depot where we have those residential buildings, tall, big footprint residential buildings, and they are usually just alone. They don't have some other structures just clipped into them. So it's looking a lot more open, even though it's still high density, of course, but it's definitely looking more open compared to these like super high density blocks where you can't even see like a pixel of grass inside of them, right? So we definitely need to do some kind of transition between those kinds of types of blocks, okay? And that's exactly what we're going to do in here. So I was really trying to use some of the large footprint buildings that I haven't used in the city just yet. So for example, this big, I don't even know what is this, like a furniture market or something building. It doesn't really matter what it is. It's just absolutely gigantic building, and I just used it to fill the inside of this block because I placed all kinds of different structures all around it, like literally all around it, even blocking the front entrance, because I obviously didn't want that front sign showing. I really just wanted to have it serve as this inside fill, and it served that purpose just perfectly. These are buildings that I downloaded, I think, right before making or building this episode. These are like Japanese high-density apartment blocks or something. They have 3 different structures. You can kind of combine them randomly. I am going to use them in some different areas of the city. I think in the next episode, I'm definitely going to use one particular building, because there's like a sloped building that's absolutely perfect for some sloped terrain areas. So but these are very nice because you can just combine them into all kinds of these shapes. So dividing some of these larger blocks even also into smaller areas, so I can just use some of these larger structures without really worrying about the inside of the block. So pretty much making sure that some of these blocks are at most like 10 units wide, so I really don't need to bother with something like I did with that big commercial building there. Now, this is the place where we have that corridor kind of exiting or entering, whatever you want to think about it, the ridge, the pedestrian highway ridge. So I figured that there needs to be some kind of an entrance to it. These blocks basically need to what's the word? Need to respect that entrance. So I decided to cut the blocks and put like a path in there, even though the path is not really leading anywhere, because like I said, those kinds of blocks, I really wanted to just make them super messy because I wanted to have that similar style as we have on the waterfront. But past those blocks, we are just going to continue with that more suburb feel of those open areas, even though it's going to be mostly filled with those high density apartment buildings like these ones. So we definitely haven't seen these buildings for the last time in the last episode because they are just way too nice, and I really wanted to continue doing something with them. It's especially nice how they come in these different sizes, different lengths, and even heights. But in this particular case, I'm just using the different lengths, and I decided to make these waves, let's say, and put them on both sides of that main street, even though I'm later kind of going to reconfigure that and delete some buildings and, put something more interesting here and there. And obviously that was just a rough placement of the buildings, but later it's going to have, those blocks are going to have some playgrounds and, all those kinds of things that we have already done in the previous episode for these particular buildings. So this one block was also needed to have some sort of messy high-density expansion in there, even though this corner is going to be like a tiny little plaza in front of that roundabout building, the angled roundabout building, right? There is a tram stop on this road. By the way, these roads, I think these are the Akruas made roads. They are absolutely perfect. I already used it, I think, with that, I'm not sure if it was like 3 episodes back when we were doing the end of the residential bridge. Yeah, that was it. We were doing that little tram corridor underneath that medium density futuristic area, if you remember that, and I was using this very road, and I was doing some detailing on the side of the road for the platforms because I didn't know that these roads actually do have like modeled stops, so it was not really necessary. And the stops look absolutely perfect because they even have tiny little planters on the sides. They are actually looking very, very nice. So I was glad that that's the case. But they only appear, the model for the stop only appears if there are stops on both sides of the road. That's kind of something that I found out the hard way. I think in the next episode I was or for the build for the next episode, I was kind of struggling with that. Anyway, what am I doing in here? This is the roundabout that is closer to that underground depot area, and this was already done. So why am I even bothering with, doing all these kinds of things? So I'm obviously preparing for that first-person bus ride, which is actually super close at this point. It's going to be in the next episode, right? So that's something to look forward to, but I was really preparing some of these areas to look good from that first-person view, and starting with the infrastructure, of course. So we have these roundabouts. We have, I think, 3 of them in total on this line. They share very, very similar style. I was kind of copy-pasting elements between them, even the roads and markings and everything, but it's not exactly looking all that great when you look at the roads that are going into the roundabouts. So there is, of course, that problem that at this point, when I'm making the commentary, or maybe when the video is released, it's still going to be a thing. You cannot repaint segments with the intersection marking tools. You can only do, the intersections. So these roads obviously don't have that bus road. In that medium density area on the top of the hill, I was solving this issue by using just the bus road, the 2-directional bus road, and kind of detailing away one direction. But in this case, I was just using the one-way true roundabout road, and I decided to just use some of those network asphalts, so I could just do the lanes correctly colored even on the segments. But I was really having issues with blending the colors with the intersection marking tool area and this colored surface. So I finally decided to just put the colored network everywhere, even into the intersection area, kind of treat it with the node controller here and there a bit, and delete that intersection marking tool color completely. And this is much better because it just blends the color just much better, right? So I eventually, I'm not even sure if I'm showing it in here. Well, definitely not in here, but maybe I'm going to show that with some next episodes where I'm going to do all of this, even with the places that we have already seen previously. So the medium density area on top of this hill, and even that episode, I think it was like when we were building that first public transport hub, when I was doing that bus roundabout, right? So I also improved that one, and it's all nicely prepared for that first person bus ride. Okay, so definitely stay tuned for that one. And yeah, doing just some the detailing around this path, because this is where the bus is going, of course. That's where we have those bus roads. You can clearly see them in the time lapse. So I'm really trying to make the detailing kind of slightly better around these roads, not really bothering in places where you can't see it from the bus, but making sure that it's looking nice from the view of the bus. All right, so we are now moving towards those buildings that we haven't built today, but we have built them last time, but we didn't really bother with any kind of detailing inside of them or inside of the blocks that they are in. So I'm using these playgrounds, these like pre-built playgrounds, because they are just super easy to work with. They come in different configurations, many different configurations, I should say, and you can really create interesting looking playgrounds. I also decided to use some of these basketball courts or play fields, and I'm not exactly sure what was the reason why I used these ones and not the repaintable ones. I think the repaintable ones had some issues with the load. I don't exactly remember the reason why I used these. Maybe I just wanted to use something different, doesn't really matter. Using the gravel to create some sort of a random looking shapes in this area, because even the playgrounds are not exactly following any kind of geometry, so that felt kind of appropriate, and just filling the inside places with some bushes, trees, basically closing them off. Also, I'm going to later put some more trees around that tram road. Obviously the tram tracks, it's not really a road, those are just tracks. They are having those fences all around them, so that kids won't run into the track area, right? So this area is now completely done, finally. So after today's episode, the underground depot area is going to be having all of those detailing stuff just done, completely done all around it. So that's going to be nice. You're going to see that in the cinematics. We also need to start finishing this intersection or interchange area. So eventually I decided that it's just going to be a lot of trees around it. Also to block the noise, obviously, but mostly just to make it look interesting. I was experimenting with putting some of those underground parking lots underneath the interchange area, but eventually decided against that because it was just not looking all that good, and the area kind of liked some larger areas with trees, with tall trees, and it felt like super appropriate to just put really tall trees all around the highway. Again, maybe for shielding against the noise and stuff like that. I'm not exactly sure if we have seen this building before in some previous episodes. Maybe I experimented with some placements. I'm not exactly sure right now. Doesn't really matter. But we placed it right there. It's just fitting so nicely. Now, what am I doing in here? This block, which is between these tracks and the road that goes parallel to basically this, again, high-density residential block, it's actually going to be completely open, and it's going to be a big park with this building inside of it. I'm not exactly sure what this building is in real life. Maybe some kind of a sports center, a gallery. I really don't know. But in Aurelia, it's probably, something like that as well. Maybe some kind of a sports building, like a concert building as well. Not exactly sure. Doesn't really matter. It looks super nice in this area. I converted it into procedural objects. I had to because this terrain is sloped, so I really wanted to have it sloped even after the building was there. So had to convert it and just get rid of all all the terrain stuff that it was doing. Now, the reason for me doing this open area in here is actually because of the first person view, but this time for the trams. This tram, this line. Because I was looking at that, if you remember, a couple of minutes ago, I was doing that tiny little plaza with the roundabout building, and I was actually looking at the first person view, looking into this area from that plaza. And I was thinking to myself, there has to be some kind of open area so that all of these high density buildings around are going to stand out a lot more. Because obviously if the entire place is super high density, then you can't really call the individual blocks like super high density anymore, because, you know, if the entire place is super high density, then none of the smaller places are eventually, right? Like, it just doesn't work that way. If you want to have some elements of an area stand out, then you have to make the places around that element just different, and in terms of density, of course. So doing some kind of a park like this definitely felt super nice. I was kind of taking care not to put super tall trees everywhere, because that would destroy the entire purpose of having this place open and kind of see through for all the buildings around. So especially around the tram track, I was just putting some very low bushes, so that when I'm finally going to do that tram line first person ride, which is definitely going to come in the future, then when we are going to be going from the residential bridge into this area, then you will see kind of like you will be going on the street, which is very crowded. You have all those buildings on all sides, and then suddenly you're going to arrive at this little plaza, and this entire suburb is going to open in front of you, and you're going to see all those high rise, all those tall residential buildings just here and there kind of popping up, you know. And the highway you're going to see kind of going through the valley itself, you're going to see that, how it's just how it's just configured, like geometrically how it works with this place. So this park was very important for exactly that. Honestly, if I was not doing those first person rides, maybe the park would not have been built there. Maybe I would actually decide to just fill it with some high density blocks. Maybe I would have actually put those tall residential buildings, so those big footprint residential buildings, the white and green ones, I would have probably put them closer to those tracks. So this only shows how you can really judge your city much better when you are doing these first person overviews, at least, you know, during your building process, right? Because that's what a lot of people don't do, and sadly that's what a lot of in my opinion, architects don't really do in real life. Like most of the time when there are some, you know, projects, building projects or visualizations of like future projects, they are usually just some aerial shots of the area. But that's obviously not how I'm going to see that, right? And after it's done. So it's very important to think about how it's going to look for the people actually walking down on the streets. And in City Skylines in particular, you don't really have that motivation, right? Because you are always looking at the city from above. But if you are making YouTube videos and you decided to make first-person views, then while building the city, you kind of need to pay attention to that as well. So that's nice. That's another like positive aspect of you know, making these videos for better looking city. You know, that's kind of unexpected consequence, let's say, but definitely a very welcome one. So while I was kind of ranting about that, we finished some of these areas in front of the highway. This is pretty much the same style that I decided to do on the opposite side with that cinema building and some of those shopping malls. And I really wanted to have some kind of like a buffer zone around the highway interchange and the residential areas. So obviously some commercial places or offices are absolutely perfect for those purposes. Now we are doing some very last minute detailing or last minute filling of these some of these blocks, and following exactly the same style as before. So doing these kind of random geometry for the playgrounds, even some of these paths through the area, because this block was rather large and it needs to be connected all the way to the main street. And just filling the entire place with lots of trees and just green overall. I did also some details, like some decal paths towards the buildings, but I was not really showing that because you can clearly see that they are here. Anyway, that is all for the build. Let's now look at the before and after comparison. So this is what we had from last episode, and slowly we're gonna transition to what we built today. As you can see, the valley behind the forest ridge after the residential bridge is starting to fill up quite nicely. I can already tell that the next episode of Aurelia is going to completely finish this entire view. Okay, so that's going to be the valley completely done, and also the waterfront area slightly altered, or not really altered, but just expanded, so that that particular static view is going to be completely done. And like I mentioned before, I am keeping all of these before and after shots, and I'm going to just edit them together into one video where you're going to see all of these before and after shots. So hopefully that's going to look super good. I'm probably going to combine it with some video of like an overview of this area. Maybe that's going to be really necessary because after the next episode, I definitely want to go back to the downtown, or at least do some kind of projects area somewhere else in the city. So maybe some kind of an overview of this second half of the city is in order, right? So we are probably going to see that. Anyway, finished cinematics of today's build. You can see that the park really works well, and it was needed in this area. This is the edge of the city after all, so it wouldn't make sense to build some super high density blocks absolutely everywhere, or even the suburb blocks absolutely everywhere, because yeah, this is the edge of the city, so should have some area slightly open. You can see that I also did some kind of detailing with some intersections here and there, especially around that bus line, so that we are going to all see that with that episode. I haven't done the episode yet, by the way, the first person bus ride, so it's going to take some time. Hopefully I'm going to be able to do it. Kind of struggling with making the sounds for it. Like I haven't really decided how I'm going to approach that, but I'm going to figure it out, obviously, and we are going to see that. I also put pedestrian paths absolutely everywhere through this place, not just like detailing stuff. I think I even put some fake service buildings or commercial buildings inside that Viking building. I'm not really sure how it's called, so that there is reason for people to walk all around this place, and it's all connected, obviously, even to the tram stop. So you can see that the paths through the park are quite busy. Right, and doing also those tall trees all around the main road and even the tracks on the side, on only one side of the park. And this is the shot of that completely finished area around that underground depot. So that one definitely turned out looking very, very good. Anyway, guys, thank you for watching today's episode of Aurelia. I hope you liked it. If you did, you can put a thumbs up underneath the video. You can share the video and subscribe to the channel if you're new here. And you can also support the channel directly by becoming a channel member. Thank you for watching again. Take care and goodbye.